Hello, students and listeners at home. You are welcome to today's online teaching. My name is Okeke Evangeline from Christian Religious Studies Department of St. Charles College, Onitsha. Our topic for today will be on call to obedience. But before we proceed, let us look at the specific objectives, which are, by the end of the lesson, the students will be able to 1. Explain the term obedience. 2. List the blessings from obeying God. 3. Tell the story of Abraham's call. 4. Write down the blessings of Abraham for obeying God's call. 5. Discuss the birth of Isaac. 6. Give an account of the sacrifice of Isaac. Now to the lesson proper. The meaning of obedience. What is obedience? Generally, obedience is simply doing what one is commanded to do. It means to do what you are told to do by a person or anybody. Obedience means a total submission to authority. But in our lesson today, we are going to narrow it down to the obedience of God. And the question is, what is obedience to God? Obedience to God is keeping God's commandments, loving God, doing what God expects from us. Remember that one of the commandments of God is obey your father and your mother. And when we do all those things, you see that we are obeying God. And as a result of this, we are going to receive his blessings. Now, let's look at the blessings from obeying God. 1. It establishes our dignity and honor. Psalm 119 verse 5 says, "Oh, that my ways may be steadfast in keeping the statutes." 2. It preserves our way pure, insulated from the worldly influence. Psalm 119 verse 6 says, "How can a young man keep his way pure? By guiding it according to the word." 3. It protects our minds and maintains our integrity. Psalm 119 verse 23. It says, "Even though princes sit plotting against me, that I keep the word." 7. It preserves our life from hardship and problems. Psalm 119 verse 92 says, "If the law had not been my delight, I should have perished in my affliction." 8. It makes our mind wise and smart. Psalm 119 verse 97. "Oh, how I love the law. It is my meditation all the day." 9. It gives us joy and happiness. Psalm 119 verse 111. "The word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." Now, let us look at the call of Abraham from God and how obedient he was. Abraham was one of the people that loved and obeyed God. Because of his attributes, he obeyed God on everything he instructed him to do. This can be seen clearly when God called Abraham to leave his kindred and father's household in Haran to unknown land which God promised to show him. The magnitude of the command was incredible, yet Abraham obeyed God. Taking his household and all he had to an unknown destination, Abraham did not argue with his maker. He left his country called Haran and went to the land of Canaan and settled at Shechem to the oak of Moriah. Here we can see how obedient Abraham was. He never argued with God. He listened to the call, to the voice, to the command of God, and left his hometown Haran to the place that God promised him. How many of us will be obedient to God like Abraham? How many of us will hearken to the voice of the Lord? How many of us still keeps the commandments of God? Abraham is the father of faith, and we ought to emulate him in everything. This is the picture of Abraham, the father of faith. Now, let's look at the blessings of Abraham for obeying God's call. Remember that Abraham obeyed the voice of God, the call of God, and God showered him with his blessings. You can see this in Genesis 12, 2-3. These blessings are: 1. God said to Abraham, I will make you a great nation. And God made Abraham a great nation, because from Abraham a lot of nations emerged. Then 2, God said, I will bless you. And God blessed Abraham. Abraham today is known for his blessings that he gained from God. 3, God said, I will make your name great. Did God make the name of Abraham great or not? He did. Today we are hearing about Father Abraham because he obeyed God and God made his name great. 4, you will be a blessing. 5, God said to him, I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse. And God fulfilled these promises and blessings he made to Abraham. 5, God said to Abraham, by you all the families of the earth shall bless themselves. And God also fulfilled this particular promise and blessings he made to Abraham. We can see that God is a God that fulfills his promises. As we all know, God promised Abraham a son, Isaac. So let's now look at the birth of Isaac to see how God fulfilled his promise. You can see this in Genesis 22, 1-19. When Abraham eventually settled in Canaan, he had everything but had no son. Yet, God had promised him that his descendants would inhabit the land. When Abraham was 99 years old, God promised him that his wife Sarah would give birth to a son who would be called Isaac. This promise was confirmed by one of the 3 strangers, angels, whom Abraham invited into his house and showed them kindness and hospitality. Sarah overheard the conversation and laughed in disbelief. God said, is anything too hard for the Lord? And what happened? Finally, God fulfilled his promise to Abraham and Sarah because he is a God that never fails. As you can see in the image of the birth of Isaac, this is the newborn baby Isaac. And see how happy Abraham and Sarah were to the birth of their son, the long-awaited son, the promised child. Nothing is impossible for God. Now, having seen how God fulfilled his promise to Abraham and Sarah by giving them a son, Isaac, let us now see the sacrifice of Isaac. You can find this in Genesis 22, 1-19. After the birth of Isaac, God decided again to test Abraham's faith. He tempts Abraham by ordering him to take his son, his only son Isaac, whom he loves, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering upon one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. Abraham obeyed God, saddled his ass, took his son, 2 servants, and set off to the land of Moriah. After a 3-day journey, he came close to the place and instructed the 2 young men to stay with the ass and wait, while he went alone with the son Isaac up to the mountain for the sacrifice. Isaac was made to carry the wood for the burnt offering, while he had a fire and knife. Isaac asked the father, here the fire and the wood, but where are the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham replied, saying, God will provide himself the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. When they got there, Abraham built an altar and arranged the woods. The story continues. He then burned the son and laid him on the altar on top of the wood. He took his knife to slay his son, but God called from heaven and said, "Do not lay your hand on your son." God provided a ram for the sacrifice through his angel. Because of this singular act of obedience, God reaffirmed his commitment to blessing Abraham and multiplying his descendants, and it is reckoned on Abraham as faithful. Abraham named the place Jireh, the Lord will provide. Abraham then returned with his 2 young men and Isaac to Beersheba and lived there. Now you can see the 2 images. The first image portrays where Isaac is with the wood for the sacrifice, and this is the father Abraham with the knife and the fire for the sacrifice. Then the second image portrays where Abraham is about to slay his son Isaac. You can see that the son Isaac is laid on the wood for the sacrifice, when God now called unto Abraham not to lay his hand on his son and provided a ram for the sacrifice. You can see the ram there by the bush side. So this shows that Abraham has a strong faith and trust in God and is always obedient to God. And God also showed Abraham that he is still God. Students, having listened to the stories that we've discussed on this topic, starting from the call of Abraham, the birth of Isaac, and the sacrifice of Isaac, what can you learn from it, or what have you learned from it? Obedience. You see how obedient Abraham was. He obeyed God in everything without questioning or arguing with his maker, and God showered his blessings upon him. What about you? What about me? What about us? We are urged here to be obedient to the commandments of God, to the voice of God, to the call of God, so that God equally will bless us. And this obedience we are talking about simply means obedience to God's call, to his service. Abraham obeyed God at the age of 75 years in the land of Haran, and his acts of obedience attracted God's blessings. Isaac came into being when Abraham was 100 years old and Sarah 90 years old. On one of the mountains at Moriah, God provided a ram for sacrifice in place of Isaac, and Abraham called the place God will provide. Abraham's obedience in sacrificing Isaac to God proved his faith, love, and sincerity to God. This act multiplied his blessings before God. So, students, we have to be obedient to God's call so that we also will receive God's blessing. So, my dear students, having come to the end of this lesson, I hope you enjoyed it. I will love to test you with these following questions. 1. Define the term obedience. 2. List 5 lessons from obeying God's call. 3. Tell the story of Abraham's call. 4. Write down 5 lessons of Abraham for obeying God's call. 5. Discuss the birth of Isaac. 6. Give an account of the sacrifice of Isaac. 7. Mention 3 moral lessons you learned from the topic. In addition, I would also like you to read up the following passages. 1. Genesis 12, 1-9. 2. Genesis 21, 1-8. 3. Genesis 22, 1-19. Answer the following questions and send it or submit it to my WhatsApp number, or if you have any other questions, you can also ask the questions through my WhatsApp number 0817 477 4841. Thanks and see you next time.